Hey everybody, it's your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and this is another episode in my horror debate series that I collaborate with my good buddy Carlin, where we debate a wide array of topics in the horror genre. If you are new here, first off, thanks for checking out this video. I hope you hit that subscribe button on both of our channels. But watch my video here and then go to Carlin's channel. I have a link in the description down below. Watch his video with the same title. Then if you'd like, he'll have the community tab open on his page where you can vote for who you thought had the better argument. Was it him? Was it myself? And there's also a tie option. And with the topic, we'd love to know what your stance on the topic is in the comment section down below. We love reading and interacting with people who just love horror as much as we do. Sounds good? Awesome. Also, if you haven't done so already, I'd really appreciate it if you could take that 1 second, hit that subscribe button, help me grow my channel, share this video out there, and hit that like button, leave comments, all that normal stuff that we like to ask everybody to do. So, what are we going to discuss today? Well, it's the beginning of the year, so we are discussing what was the most disappointing horror movie of 2023. Do you think 2023 was a good year for horror? I'm kind of still undecided on that. There was some disappointing films in there, but there were also some amazing films like Godzilla Minus One and When Evil Lurks. But there were a lot of forgettable and downright bad horror flicks. Namely, one of them is Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Probably the worst movie I've seen in a long time. And I'll admit, I couldn't even make it way all the way through that movie because everything about that movie was bad. But I can't pick that movie for the most disappointing horror film because I don't think people really expected that much. So, looking back on all the horror movies, the new ones I should say that I've watched that came out in 2023, I feel that the most disappointing horror movie that came out in that year was VHS 85. I was a big fan of the VHS franchise. I love those first couple of movies. The first one, great wraparound story, and it's really important with this franchise to have a good wraparound story so you don't lose attention between the segments. So first VHS, excellent. I love just about every single segment in there. VHS 2, another good one. Another great wraparound story too. A little similar to the first one, but still really did the job well. And some of my favorite segments of the entire franchise were in part 2. Halloween Party, Evil Eye, Devil Born, and Sleepover. Fantastic, fantastic segments. Viral, I did like that one. It wasn't good as the first two, but still a solid watch. Parallel Worlds and Bone Storm segments are excellent, even though I didn't care about the wraparound story. VHS 94, it was okay. I did like the segment, The Subject. The others weren't too bad. The Empty Wake was another good one. But I did like 94 more than Viral. VHS 99, the segment with the punk band was pretty good. And I also like Gawkers, except for the sound effects of the Medusa creature. But yeah, and I did hate Ozzy Dungeon. So, little bit of diminishing returns, but I was expecting a lot from VHS 95. I was very hopeful since it takes place in my very decade for horror. And I figured at least one of those segments, would at least fit the bill that I wanted, to scratch that itch that I would want from a VHS anthology found footage movie set in the 1980s. One of the major letdowns was the lack of cohesion and a compelling, overarching narrative for this film, unlike its predecessors. I think VHS 85 really failed to weave those individual segments into a cohesive story where you can at least be engaged in what's going on. The movie just really felt disjointed and then made it like a challenge to become emotionally invested in any of the characters or the overall plot. And there was really no central theme, and I felt throughout the movie all I got was a sense of confusion. You have a movie called VHS 85. You think a lot of the theme would be like, hey, pop culture references, things that were popular in the 80s since your movie was set in the 80s, but nothing felt like it was really in the 80s. The first segment, I feel it served no purpose. It started with something interesting, and then it just kind of ended like they ran out of ideas and said, okay, let's just end it. I remember watching it for the first time, and I had to back up the entire segment and watch it again to see if I missed something once I got to the ending, because I was just so confused, like, what did I miss? Like I said, it's like they ran out of ideas and just stopped. It didn't really... I know it attempts to tie in with the later segment with that racist, obnoxious family, but it still kind of fell flat overall. Another segment, God of Death. At best, I can say that one was just forgettable. Techno God. I felt that was dumb. Why go with the VR theme in a horror segment that takes place in the 80s? Granted, we had movies like The Lawnmower Man and shows like Max Headroom in the 80s, but when someone says 80s horror, I don't think anyone would really think of VR as a theme. And the execution is one really fell flat. I didn't even watch it a second time for this video. I just remember it was really a boring, lame segment. Ambrosia, which was connected to the first segment. After I watched it, I was like, okay, so what? It's like half the story was left out. It sets something up, then it just leaves you wanting, okay, like, why did I just watch that? Why did I invest? Again, there's no reason to be invested in any of the characters because there's no payoff, really, with some of these segments. Dreamkill, the final segment, not including the broken wraparound that really wasn't a wraparound, that was just a regular segment broken up into different parts. Yeah, Dreamkill just really did nothing special. They were trying to go for something interesting and it just fell flat. And none of the segments here felt like they took place in the 80s, except for the costume design. There are plenty of 80s pop references that you could have put in this movie to make it feel like an 80s movie. This was the first VHS film to be set in the 80s, the decade of the VHS boom. How do you screw that up? And that's why I feel that this movie was really disappointed, because you kind of screwed it up when you have the VHS boom of the 80s. The movie takes place in 85 and nothing felt 80s in it. You know, segments could have focused on family sitcoms, home video game systems, hair metal, Saturday morning cartoons, something that can relate the viewer to the 80s to get that nostalgia feel, since it's like a VHS film. Another thing I didn't like about this movie, while it was disappointing, is it felt forced in most parts as to why are you filming this part of found footage films. That's an essential part of a good found footage film. Why are you still filming this? If you can't answer that question, it doesn't really feel like a found footage film. It was more of a movie filmed in the found footage style. And that's what I got here with VHS 85. I love the wraparound segments for the first two films. They were really good. Sets the movie up extremely well. This one didn't even feel like a wraparound. It's more like a regular segment that was just cut up into pieces. I think the wraparound is an important part of the VHS franchise. You know, when we were first introduced, that wraparound played an important role in the film. They break into the house. You know, they're watching these VHS tapes. A bunch of weird stuff's happening, and these are the tapes that they're watching. VHS 85 kind of just like kind of poo-pooed all over that. So, with the VHS boom in the 80s, this was their shot to make an excellent found footage film. Again, this movie didn't feel like it took place in the 80s. It had no style to it. All they did was put people in 80s attire and like 80s hair and say, hey, it takes place in the 80s. You know, with the slasher boom in the 80s, they could have gone that route with at least one of the segments. I like most of the VHS movies. The first two are great, and I just didn't like this one at all. I wanted to like it. I was excited about it. I had high hopes because, hey, it's a VHS movie that takes place in the 80s, but it just really fell flat for me. I have no reason ever to really want to watch this movie again. None of the segments were memorable or even good. I said forgettable at best. So for me personally, I had high expectations for this movie because I love found footage films. The 80s is my favorite decade for horror. So two things going for it, but it missed the mark extremely, extremely bad. I just did not enjoy this film at all. And I don't know if they're going to make another VHS movie after this installment. I think that well has run dry, but I guess they're popular. But this movie was just really disappointing for me. And of all the new horror films I watched in the year of 2023, my selection for the most disappointing horror movie that came out was VHS. Thanks for watching. Now, please go to Carl's channel, link below, watch video on the same title, and then if you'd like, you can go to Community Tab on his page and vote for who you thought had the better argument. And please let us both know what your selection is for the most disappointing horror film of 2023. We'd love to read it. We'd love to talk horror. Lots of good times. And if you haven't done so already, again, please hit that subscribe button on both of our channels. We both put a lot of hard work in, and we'd greatly much appreciate it. As a thank you, just hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it a lot. So, I hope you're doing well, everybody. I hope everybody watching has a fantastic 2024. And we'll see you here in 2 weeks for another debate topic where Carl and I are going to talk about more of the horror genre. Great. Take care, everybody. Be good to yourselves and be good to each other. I am your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete. And remember, with great kills, there must also come great nows.